right, cool. So we're rolling. So yeah, this is like historic, man. We are, in a unprecedented time, and I just wanted to honor that and honor this space. And I figured I would record this conversation. And so this is the first stuff. Let me even tell you what a CYPHA is. For folks, everyone know what a CYPHA is? Look, so some yeses, I know there's yeses and there's no's,
I'm a
right?
native Bronxite. I definitely know what a CYPHA is.
Yeah, so a CYPHA is like the most probably like intimate space you would ever enter, right? It would be people that are like just either battling lyrically in just like the most creative, the most authentic ways ever, or it would be like folks just like reasoning about life, like smoking herb or drinking, but just, the most authentic times of your life, right? Where people are just, being people. So I figured that this is what I wanted the space to be, something where we can just be authentic and be real. And I'm super happy that, one of the people that I've had the most authentic, and I mean, even looking at a lot of people who have had a lot of really authentic relationships with, just to show up and have a conversation and honor this moment. So
all the way.
All vibes.
All the way. And on my end, first of all, Kirk, I love you and I'm so happy to see you. I miss you like crazy. Kirk and I spend like endless days missing each other and trying to see each other. The last time we saw each other was in Ghana in December.
2019.
Which is
who'd have thought 2020 would be this?
Nobody did, and I think like one of the things, and you and me have spoken, I think one of the things that's real about all of us dealing with this on the day to day is when you ask somebody, how are you? I don't really do that question anymore when I call people. Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Because it's like a ridiculous question right now. And so you and me have taken to asking each other that question. And when we ask that question, it means, how are you feeling this second, this moment right now? Where's your heart at right now? Where's your emotion at right now? Because we can only vouch for that which is happening this second in our emotional spaces, right? Because in 10 minutes, we could be pitched into a whole snowballing state of despair and depression. In 20 minutes, I've lately come to this strange merger of optimism and denial, which I'm not mad at all. I'm actually enjoying it. It never lasts permanently, but I'll have of just, it's going to be all good. This is just going to launch us into the new world that we've been seeking. And, and it's kind of optimism and kind of denial. I think some of us are being surprised by parts of ourselves through all of this. I hope we're all being surprised by parts of ourselves. And I know one of them is how is my optimism is a hell of a lot deeper rooted than I thought.
Wow. Powerful. Amen. Amen to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've come to that optimism. I also think, and you and me talk all the time about trauma and about what it is, to endure and grief. And I think when this first started kicking in and like, I knew this was going to go down in New York. I knew it was. And I spent the summer teaching at the University of Milan. And so I felt like I was a few weeks ahead. I was very close in touch with comrades in Milan, and especially people in prison in Milan. I was teaching a course that was partly in prison and partly on the outside. And they were all telling me, they were just essentially forecasting what New York would look like. And so it wasn't a great surprise to me. And I knew this was going to go down. And I think in the beginning, like, you really have to think of it as stages of mourning and grief and stages of trauma. And, the first stage for me was this stage of like shock, terror, freaking the fuck out, and feeling like I just want to throw in the towel completely.
Yeah.
And then there were different stages that in some ways the stages still play themselves out on the daily, but they move you to a place of moving out of that into other spaces, connecting with, I know that for me, connecting with the justice community around the world that I've been doing a lot more of, or been able to do a lot more of, getting a hold of people has helped a lot. But it's moved me out of the space of my own fucking head, you know, and our own spaces of self and into the space of, and I'm thinking that because everybody here is your people or my people, that they're in our CYPHA of being, you know, doers and people who are, you know, engaged with others in that way. And then, because I hit in that initial stage of grief, for me, it was a place where I couldn't be of service to others. I couldn't be of use to others. And I didn't even recognize myself. And that was the worst.
Yeah. But there's something though you spoke about that I feel like is so real in this moment. It's the schizophrenia of the moment, right? Like on one hand, feeling like, yo, this is like the most dystopian shit ever. And on another hand, being like, wow, there's also such tremendous possibility that is here right now. And holding them simultaneously, or sometimes the scale being imbalanced, and finding maybe that you're more rooted than ever before, right? And finding all those things happening at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I also though one thing I'm consistently trying to do is to, again, honor the grief and the trauma, and not be like, oh, it's all for a reason, you know, that whole like mode of philosophy that says, oh, bad things happen for a reason, in a way that cheapens the bad things. You know, we know people who have died. We know people who are suffering. We know people who are going to be suffering. Yeah. Like, that is first and foremost what we have to say. Not, oh, great, the air is clean now and there's dolphins in the canals of Venice. And like, in ways to me that is deeply insulting to the trauma, grief, and suffering, especially as we know of those who are most directly impacted by this crisis, right? So, you know, whether it's in terms of race, in terms of class, in terms of your situation as being in prison, or your situation as being without a home or a migrant. And I'm so mindful to not minimize that pain and suffering, even as we recognize, okay, so there's a crack here, a big fucking crack. And
how have you done that practically, Baz? Like, how have you kind of like held the truth of that and also like took care of yourself? Because I mean, I think that is really the real right now, right? Like, hold that truth, but then also don't drown in that.
Yeah, I think it's allowing myself to vacillate between those two feelings, and also being very mindful of the way that I talk in all of this. And when you know, we're all having a lot of conversations with friends and, you know, and connecting with people. And that's one of the beautiful things that comes of this, is that we're old school phone calls have made a comeback, and that's great. And I've had some really meaningful reconnections and connections through all that. But I'm mindful about how I talk about it, that I'm always, in a sense, like, it brings me back to 9/11, and that you want to always honor the tragedy of what's happening, just in the way that we talk. I mean, I wrote this piece that I published about the language of coronavirus, which pisses me off. And it pissed me off from day one, the way we were using all these euphemisms and like bureaucratic language around this, like social distancing. I'm sorry, that's not a word. Like, that's not a phrase. It's called isolation. It's called staying away from people. It's called being lonely and being apart from people and hurting because I can't give a hug to my goddaughter Justice, or my, you know.
I don't even feel that's one of the things about this moment I think is super real, right? Is that we haven't even acknowledged the trauma of this separation, you know, and that feels crazy, you know, like I feel that we've done everything to protect capitalism. We've done everything, like all these emergency hours, this time, it's all to protect capitalism. Yep. There's been no attempt to even acknowledge the global trauma that people are experiencing in something that is like unprecedented in everybody's experience.
Correct. And it's protect capitalism at all costs.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about that, I felt like everybody was on this push to just apply normalcy as soon as possible from when this first went down. And people were doing that at, like, you know, the machine was pushing for that because, we're protecting capitalism. And also we have to make sure that people stay in line, you know, and stay in line. That's part of what's so nefarious to me about the language. It's like a language of pushing people to stay in line and if you call it social distancing, then it's not loneliness, isolation, and trauma, you know, that's not going to keep people in line. That's insurrectionary. Yeah. So it's like that constant push that and then the return to normalcy also. I haven't done a lot of these, Zoom. I'm a professor, but I'm on sabbatical, so I haven't had to teach on Zoom. And I haven't done a lot of these at all, because in the beginning I was just like, nah, man, I don't want to pretend like normal. Yeah. This is not normal. I'm not going to get in the zone of like just pretending it's all good because I have a virtual life now. No, I want to hug people. I want to be in person. I will never be satisfied with virtual over real. And so like I stayed away from a lot of the social media stuff, because I felt like I just want to get in the zone of like connecting with self and also not bowing to the new normal. We all have to as a coping mechanism to some degree, but we also like need to just protect the abnormalcy of a situation. It's kind of like, I mean, look, this is prison, right? Prison can never be normal. And I know that I haven't been to prison, but I, have engaged in that space for a decade and a half. And I would always say to myself that the day I walk through any prison gate and it feels like normal in any way is the day I sit down and stop doing the work, because that is not normal. And this is not normal, what we're.
Well, what's crazy, and maybe we'll end on this point and take a quick music break and just, chill for a sec. But it's like, if this is prison for so many people, right? So many people are having this experience, and what you're saying is so true, that this is prison. And yet this would be like a Pablo Escobar prison, right? And folks still don't really understand the harm that like a prison is, right? Because real talk, like folks have, and not to not acknowledge like what has been going on, but it's like, this has only been like, what, a month, right? And folks are losing their minds, right? And yet that perpetual insecurity is times a million for somebody in prison. Like the danger of like knowing every minute you won't survive and knowing that you can't move, right? Like you don't have that contact is like the perpetual insecurity that people in prison and jails face. And like, I feel like this is the first time, right, that people have an opportunity to really check into that in a real way, outside of it being like theoretical, right? Like now you can, oh my God, like 30 days in my house, I'm losing my mind. Imagine when you're in a box and like another box, right, and another box,
And not as Diana was pointing out, that it's in the comfort of our own homes.
Absolutely.
And et cetera. And recognizing, which is another thing we could talk about after the break, is just like recognizing how do you acknowledge your own privilege in the context of this, while also giving space to the trauma and grief that cuts across.
Absolutely. This is for you, comrade. Like I know how much you love Chronics.
Nice.
So I'm going to get a little thing for you popping.
Nice.
When I look at where I'm coming from, I know I'm blessed, and I close my eyes and smile. Sometimes I feel like the richest man in Babylon, and I've done my best, so everything's alright inside.